The laughter echoed through the council chamber like waves crashing against rocks. Ambassador Helen Wright kept her face neutral, hands folded on the polished table before her, while dozens of alien delegates found humor in Earth's naval presentation. Behind her, Captain David Reed stood at attention, his jaw tight as another round of mocking comments filled the air. 47 frigates. High Admiral Quintal's voice carried above the rest. The Avarian's feathers ruffled with amusement, his beaked face tilted in what his species considered a smirk. My personal escort fleet numbers more than your entire navy. Counselor Brath clicked his mandibles together, the insectoid diplomat's compound eyes reflecting the holographic display showing Earth's fleet composition. Chemical propulsion, kinetic weapons. Are we certain this species has achieved faster-than-light travel, or did they simply drift here over millennia? More laughter. Helen noticed Trade Minister Alvin's gills fluttering with barely suppressed mirth. The aquatic being's translation device rendered his watery speech into standard galactic. Perhaps we should offer them museum status instead of coalition membership. Their ships would make fascinating historical exhibits. David's hand moved slightly toward his sidearm before he caught himself. Helen didn't look back, but she knew her military escort was struggling. 3 months of preparation, traveling across a quarter of the galaxy, all to be treated like primitives displaying stone tools to nuclear powers. Ambassador Wright. Quintal leaned forward in his elevated seat, wings folded against his back. Earth submitted this application 6 standard months ago. The Coalition Council has reviewed your worlds, your technology, your military capabilities. Frankly, we're puzzled why you bothered. Helen stood slowly, drawing the attention of every delegate in the chamber. The circular room fell silent, though she could still see the amusement in their eyes. Hundreds of species had sat in this very spot, petitioning for membership, for protection, for the right to be heard among the galactic powers. Most were denied. Some were accepted as vassal states, their fleets absorbed into coalition armadas, their youth conscripted to fight border wars. High Admiral, Helen's voice carried clearly without amplification. Earth seeks membership as an equal partner, not a subordinate state. Equal? Brath's laughter sounded like grinding metal. You command 3 cruisers. The Kryn Consortium maintains 3,000. Your largest vessel masses 800,000 tons. Our dreadnoughts exceed 40 million. What possible basis for equality exists? Strategic value, Helen replied simply. Quintal's feathers flattened against his skull, a sign of irritation. Your worlds offer nothing unique. Standard oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, conventional biosphere, unremarkable resource distribution. Your technology lags centuries behind current standards. Your military couldn't defend a single system against even moderate threats. Then why, Helen asked, her voice calm, does the coalition permit this hearing at all? The question hung in the air. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Alvin's gills stopped fluttering. David noticed it too, the slight change in atmosphere, the way certain council members suddenly found their data pads fascinating. Quintal recovered first. Professional courtesy, all spacefaring species receive consideration. An observation, Helen let the words settle. The coalition wants to know what we're capable of before deciding how to categorize us. Ally, vassal, or potential threat. Threat? Quintal's laugh was sharp. Madam Ambassador, your entire navy couldn't threaten a mining operation in the Outer Rim. We've seen your vessels. Crude fusion drives, primitive targeting systems, armor that our point defense weapons would cut through like radiation through vacuum. Helen reached into her jacket, producing a small data chip. David stepped forward, taking it to the central console. The holographic display shifted, showing new information. Fleet compositions, engagement records, casualty reports. These are Earth's visible assets, Helen said. Ships operating in surveyed space, conducting diplomatic missions, establishing trade routes. What you see is what we choose to show. Brath leaned closer to his display. You suggest hidden forces, secret fleets. Forgive my skepticism, but maintaining large-scale military operations requires infrastructure that cannot be concealed from orbital surveys. Who said anything about large-scale? Helen smiled slightly. The coalition operates on principles of numerical superiority, vast fleets, overwhelming firepower through sheer quantity. Earth took a different approach. Which is, Quintal demanded. Quality over quantity, concentration over distribution, patience over haste. The High Admiral's wings spread slightly, a dominance display. Pretty words masking weakness. The Council votes now, all in favor of granting Earth full membership status. Not a single hand, wing, tentacle, or appendage rose. Observer status, then, Quintal continued. Limited access to coalition space, no voting rights, no military protection, no trade preferences. Every delegate raised their affirmation. Helen nodded slowly, as if she'd expected exactly this outcome. David's fists clenched behind her, but he remained silent. However, Quintal added, his tone shifting to something almost charitable, the coalition currently faces a situation on the Talon Nebula border. The Raptor clans grow aggressive, raiding colony worlds. We're assembling a response fleet. Earth's vessels may join as observers, gain combat experience, prove their worth future consideration. How generous, Helen said, her tone unreadable. Consider it an opportunity, Brath added. Show us you can at least survive in modern warfare. Perhaps in a decade or two, we'll revisit membership. Helen gathered her materials, David moving to her side. As they turned to leave, Quintal called out once more. Oh, Ambassador, one more thing. Don't get your people killed trying to impress us. The Raptors don't take prisoners, and we won't risk coalition forces to rescue Earth stragglers. Helen paused at the chamber entrance, looking back over her shoulder. High Admiral, Earth didn't survive its own conflicts by seeking rescue. We learned to stand alone long before we reached the stars. As the massive doors closed behind them, David finally spoke. They have no idea. Helen pulled out her communicator, entering a specific encryption code. No, they don't, but they will. The message she sent contained only 3 words: Project Colossus authorized. Somewhere beyond the galactic rim, in a construction facility that didn't appear on any registry or scan, warning lights began flashing yellow, then red, then a brilliant blue that signified full operational deployment. A ship that had taken 20 years to build was about to introduce itself to a galaxy that thought it knew everything about warfare. The mockery would end soon enough. Missiles streaked through the void like angry hornets, their contrails creating geometric patterns against the darkness. Commander Lisa Grant watched her tactical display as the Raptor clans attack wing-broke formation, clearly not expecting the Earth destroyer Defiant to dodge their initial salvo with such precision. Hull integrity at 96%, her tactical officer reported. Return fire solutions locked. Wait, Lisa said quietly, watching the Raptor ship swing around for another pass. 3 cruisers, each easily twice the Defiant's mass, their hulls scarred from countless battles. These weren't raiders or pirates. These were professional warships crewed by beings who'd spent generations perfecting the art of violence. The Coalition fleet spread across the Talon Nebula's edge like a net, trying to contain the Raptor expansion. Quintal's flagship, the massive Skybreaker, dominated the formation center, surrounded by Avarian battlecruisers and support vessels. Kryn dreadnoughts held the flanks, their beetle-like hulls bristling with weapons. Sulari carriers deployed fighter wings that moved through space like schools of metallic fish. Earth's contribution seemed almost comical by comparison. David's frigate Resolute, Lisa's destroyer Defiant, and 7 smaller escort vessels scattered among the coalition forces. Observer status meant they received orders but no support, expected to watch and learn while staying out of the way. The Raptors had different ideas. "They're targeting us specifically," Navigator Tim Brooks noted from his station aboard the Resolute. "Three separate attack groups breaking off from the main engagement to intercept our position." David studied the tactical plot, nodding the pattern. "They think we're easy prey. Smallest ships, newest arrivals, least experienced in coalition combat doctrine. Should we request support from the Skybreaker?" his communications officer asked. "No," David's voice carried absolute certainty. "Let them come." 12 Raptor warships descended on the Earth vessels like wolves on sheep. Their weapon systems were impressive by any standard, plasma cannons that could superheat armor to melting point in seconds, missile pods carrying warheads capable of cracking small moons, kinetic accelerators that turned depleted uranium slugs into relativistic kill vehicles. They opened fire simultaneously, a coordinated alpha strike designed to overwhelm defensive systems through sheer volume. Against standard coalition doctrine, which relied on layered shields and point defense networks, it was devastatingly effective. Earth ships didn't use standard coalition doctrine. The Resolute's engines flared to full power, not away from the incoming fire but toward it. The frigate accelerated into the missile swarm, point defense cannons tracking individual warheads with computational precision no Avarian targeting system could match. Explosions blossomed around the ship as missiles died meters from impact, their detonations absorbed by ablative armor plates that peeled away like skin, revealing fresh layers beneath. Lisa's Defiant rolled 90 degrees, presenting its narrowest profile to the plasma barrage. Where coalition ships tried to tank damage with shields, the Earth destroyer simply avoided being hit. Her helmsman, a young officer named Wright, flew the ship like a fighter craft rather than a capital vessel, using thrust vectoring and reaction control systems that shouldn't exist on something massing 400,000 tons. "Firing solution acquired," Lisa's tactical officer announced. "Target the lead cruiser, port weapons bay." "Fire." The Defiant's main railgun spoke, a magnetically accelerated tungsten penetrator crossing the distance in heartbeats. No plasma bloom to warn the target, no energy signature to track, just physics and mathematics combining into a projectile moving at 30 kilometers per second. It punched through the Raptor cruiser's armor like paper, the kinetic energy transferring into the ship's interior as catastrophic heat and pressure. Secondary explosions rippled along the hull as ammunition stores cooked off. The cruiser didn't explode dramatically like in entertainment hollows. It simply stopped functioning, becoming a tumbling wreck that would drift until someone salvaged it or it burned up in a gravity well. "Target destroyed," the tactical officer reported, surprise evident in his voice despite professional training. David watched the Raptor formation falter, their confident attack pattern dissolving into confusion. They'd expected easy kills, quick victories to boost morale and demonstrate coalition weakness. Instead, they'd lost a capital ship to a vessel they dismissed as insignificant. The Resolute's missile pods opened, launching not the standard coalition fire-and-forget weapons, but networked smart munitions that communicated with each other, adjusted trajectories mid-flight, and selected optimal impact points based on real-time damage assessment. 4 Raptor escorts vanished in synchronized detonations, their shields overwhelmed not by brute force, but by missiles that struck weak points identified through sensor analysis humans had been conducting since the engagement began. Aboard the Skybreaker, Quintel's tactical officers scrambled to understand what they were witnessing. Earth ships moved wrong, fought wrong, achieved results that contradicted everything coalition military doctrine taught. The human vessels have destroyed 7 enemy warships, an Avarian sensor operator reported. They've taken minimal damage in return. Quintel's feathers flattened in disbelief. Impossible. Their weapons are primitive kinetics and chemical explosives. Confirmed, sir, but their targeting accuracy exceeds our own by significant margins. Their maneuvering capabilities suggest drive systems we don't have classification codes for. The High Admiral watched his tactical display, seeing Earth ships dance through the Raptor formation like predators among prey. The Defiant accelerated again, impossible thrust-to-mass ratios propelling it toward a Raptor battleship. At the last moment, it rotated 180 degrees, engines now facing forward, and fired its main gun while still traveling backward at combat speed. The Raptor battleship's bridge section simply ceased to exist. All Raptor attack groups are withdrawing, another officer announced. They're regrouping at the Crucible system. Quintal activated his communicator reluctantly. Captain Reed, this is Skybreaker Actual. Good work out there. David's response was professional, emotionless. Acknowledged, Skybreaker, Resolute standing by for further orders. The Coalition fleet reformed, tending to damage, counting losses. The Raptors had retreated but not fled entirely. They'd consolidated their forces in the Crucible system, a strategic chokepoint controlling 3 colonized worlds and a dozen resource-rich asteroids. Taking it back would require a major assault against prepared defensive positions. Quintal called a command conference, bringing his senior officers together via holographic link. David and Lisa were included, though they appeared on smaller display windows, observer status still limiting their participation. The Raptors have fortified Crucible with their main battle fleet, Quintal explained. Over 200 warships in defensive formation. Standard assault doctrine suggests we'll need 3-to-1 numerical superiority for acceptable casualty rates. We don't have 3-to-1, Brath noted. Current force composition is roughly equivalent. Then we wait for reinforcements, Alvin suggested. Pull back to defensive positions, protect what we still hold. David spoke up, or we don't wait. Every hologram turned toward him. Quintal's expression mixed annoyance with curiosity. Explain, Captain. Earth is sending reinforcement. Arrival in 72 hours. How many ships? Quintal asked. 1. The silence lasted 3 full seconds before Quintal's laughter filled the channel. 1 ship. Captain Reed, I appreciate your people's combat performance today, but mathematics doesn't lie. 1 additional vessel, even a capable one, won't change the strategic situation. David's face remained neutral. You'll want to see it anyway, High Admiral. Very well, Quintal said, clearly humoring what he considered naive human optimism. We'll wait 72 hours, but if this mystery ship can't deliver miracles, we're withdrawing to defensive lines. The conference ended. Lisa contacted David on a private channel. They still don't understand. No, David agreed, pulling up a classified file on his personal display. The image showed a ship so large the scale markers had to be wrong. But in 3 days they will. Sensor alarms began as whispers, growing to insistent chimes that pulled every bridge officer's attention to their displays. The Coalition rally point hung at the edge of Raptor-controlled space, a designated safe zone where damaged vessels received repairs and commanders planned their next moves. Nothing exciting happened at rally points. They were parking lots, not battlegrounds, which made the gravitational readings impossible. Something's coming out of hyperspace, an Avarian sensor technician announced aboard the Skybreaker. Mass signature is enormous. Displacement readings are off-scale. Quintal moved to the sensor station, his wings tucked tight against his body in concentration. Equipment malfunction. Run diagnostics. Already done, sir, 3 times. The readings are accurate. Space itself began to distort, visible even to naked eyes as reality bent around something massive forcing its way into normal physics. Energy signatures pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger with each cycle. The effect reminded David of watching water drain, except reversed, something being pulled into existence rather than away. All ships, this is Skybreaker Actual, Quintal transmitted. Unknown contact emerging at coordinates 47 Mark 18. Battle stations. Weapons hot. The coalition fleet responded with professional efficiency, dozens of warships rotating to face the distortion, shields at maximum, targeting solutions calculated. If this was a Raptor ambush using some new technology, they'd face the full might of galactic military power. The distortion reached critical density. Then reality tore open like fabric under too much stress, and the Prometheus emerged. Lisa Grant's first thought was that the sensor readings were still wrong, that someone had made a decimal error, that nothing could actually be that large. Her second thought vanished entirely, as her mind struggled to process what her eyes reported. 5 kilometers long, nearly 2 kilometers wide at the beam, hull plating that looked like it could shrug off artillery strikes from a planetary defense battery. Weapon emplacements covering every surface like scales on a predator, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Engine bells large enough to park the Defiant inside with room to spare. And everywhere, the sleek lines of a design philosophy that prioritized function over aesthetics, yet somehow achieved both. "Mother of God," Tim Brooks whispered aboard the Resolute, and nobody corrected his breach of bridge protocol. The Prometheus hung in space like a mountain that had learned to fly. Quintel's flagship, the massive skybreaker that had intimidated challengers for decades, looked like a toy in comparison. The largest Kryn dreadnought, pride of the consortium's military engineering, measured barely a quarter the Titan's length. Every coalition vessel combined wouldn't equal the new arrival's mass. "Identify yourself," Quintel managed, his voice carrying an edge that might have been fear. "This is Admiral Rebecca Stone, commanding Earth Navy vessel Prometheus, hull classification Titan 3 Alpha." The voice was calm, professional, carrying absolute authority. "We're here to assist with the Raptor situation." "One ship," Brath's transmission cut across the channel. "You sent one ship." "We sent what was needed," Rebecca replied. "Captain Reed, Captain Grant, good to see you both. Status report." David collected his thoughts, forcing professionalism past sheer awe. Raptors hold Crucible system with approximately 200 warships. Coalition forces are equivalent numbers, but command is concerned about assault casualties. "Understood. Prometheus will break the siege." Quintel's laugh was sharp, almost panicked. "Admiral Stone, I don't care how large your vessel is. 200 warships in prepared defensive positions cannot be defeated by a single combatant. The mathematics of warfare don't work that way." "Coalition mathematics don't," Rebecca agreed. "But this isn't a coalition ship." The Prometheus rotated slowly, its maneuvering thrusters firing in controlled bursts. Something that massive should handle like a station, requiring careful planning and extensive time to change vectors. Instead, it moved with purpose and speed that suggested drive technology far beyond current understanding. Alvin's transmission was barely a whisper. "How is that thing even moving?" "Fusion antimatter hybrid reactor system," Rebecca explained, as if discussing standard equipment. 4 primary reactors, each one generating more power than most planetary grids. Direct conversion drive engines with thrust vectoring across 48 independent nacelles. "Antimatter," Quintel's feathers stood straight out. "Sustained antimatter containment is theoretically possible but practically impossible. The energy requirements alone would require the power generation I just described," Rebecca interrupted gently. "Earth doesn't publicize our breakthroughs, High Admiral. We learned early that advanced technology makes you a target or a commodity. Better to appear primitive while perfecting what actually matters." Brath's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. How long have you been building this?" 20 years for the Prometheus specifically. 40 years developing the underlying technology. 60 years planning the strategic doctrine. We're patient when we need to be." The Titan continued its rotation, bringing weapon systems into profile view. Lisa's tactical officer began counting, gave up, and simply logged the observation as extensive armament beyond current classification protocols. "Your visible fleet," Quintal said slowly, understanding dawning. 47 frigates, 12 destroyers, 3 cruisers. That was deliberate misdirection. "That's our scout force," Rebecca confirmed. "Ships designed for intelligence gathering, diplomatic missions, showing presence where needed. The actual military assets stayed home until we understood the galactic situation." "How many?" Brath asked. "How many ships like this do you have?" Rebecca's pause was deliberate, calculated for maximum impact. "The Prometheus is the first to deploy. 2 more are completing final trials. Construction has begun on a 4th. The channel fell silent. Every commander, every officer, every tactical analyst in the coalition fleet was doing the same calculation. 4 ships like this could reshape galactic power structures. They could enforce peace or wage war on a scale that made current conflicts look like border skirmishes. "The Crucible system," David prompted gently. "Right," Rebecca said. "I'm transmitting approach vectors now. Coalition forces will maintain position here. Prometheus will proceed alone to engage Raptor defensive positions." "Alone?" Quintal's voice rose. "Admiral Stone, even with your ship's capabilities, this is suicide. The Raptors will focus every weapon on a single target. Combined fire from 200 warships will be educational," Rebecca finished. "For everyone watching. Prometheus to all vessels, we're proceeding to Crucible system. Suggest you record everything. This will be a practical demonstration of Earth's combat doctrine." The Titan's main engines ignited blue-white fire that would have blinded sensors on older ships. The Prometheus accelerated toward the heart of Raptor-controlled space, alone, unhurried, inevitable. "She's actually doing it," Lisa said to no one in particular. David nodded slowly. "Earth doesn't bluff, never has." Quintal watched the Prometheus shrink on his display, heading toward what every tactical model said was certain destruction. He activated a fleet-wide recording protocol, ensuring every sensor, every camera, every piece of equipment documented what came next. If the humans died, the Coalition needed to learn from their mistake. And if they somehow succeeded, the galaxy needed to understand that everything had changed. Warlord Scarix studied the tactical display with satisfaction, clawed fingers drumming against the armrest of his command throne. 207 warships arranged in overlapping defensive shells around the Crucible system's primary world. 3 colony planets secured, their populations subdued, their resources feeding the Raptor war machine. Coalition forces stalled at the border, unwilling to pay the blood price required to dig his fleet out of fortified positions. "Movement at sector edge," his sensor master reported. "Single contact approaching." Scarix's scales rippled with amusement. "1 ship. The Coalition sends a scout to gauge our defenses." "Negative, Warlord. Contact is massive. Displacement readings exceed anything in our database." That got Scarix's attention. He moved to examine the sensor data himself, tail swishing in agitation. The numbers couldn't be right. Nothing that large had business moving at combat speeds. Classification: unknown. Design profile doesn't match any recognized Coalition warship. Battle Master Gren, Scarix's tactical coordinator, pulled up the visual feed. What appeared on screen made him hiss involuntarily. "That's not a ship. That's a mobile fortress." The Prometheus entered weapons range with the casual confidence of a predator approaching prey. Scarix had faced Coalition dreadnoughts, Kryn battle cruisers, Avarian carriers. He'd fought across a dozen systems and never backed down from superior numbers. But this vessel triggered instincts buried deep in his species' evolution, warnings that some threats couldn't be overcome through ferocity alone. "All batteries," Scarix growled, pushing aside doubt. "Target that ship. Concentrated fire, reduce it to scrap. 200 vessels locked weapons. Plasma cannons charged, missile tubes loaded, kinetic accelerators spun to firing speed. The Raptor clans had built their reputation on overwhelming firepower and absolute commitment to violence. Hesitation meant death. Mercy was weakness. They opened fire. Space lit up like a star-going nova as thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously. Plasma bolts streaked across the void in brilliant streams. Missiles left contrails like meteor showers. Solid slugs moved too fast for unassisted eyes to track. Enough firepower to sterilize a planet's surface converged on the Prometheus in a display of destructive force that would have vaporized anything in the Coalition fleet. The Titan's shields flared brilliant blue, absorbing energy that should have overwhelmed any defensive system. Advanced barrier technology, layered and redundant, designed specifically to handle sustained bombardment from multiple vectors. Each impact sent ripples across the shield's surface like rain on water, energy redistributing, dissipating, bleeding away into carefully engineered heat sinks. Target shields holding, Gren reported, disbelief evident in his voice. Minimal degradation despite sustained fire. Scarix leaned forward. Increase firing rate, concentrate on a single shield quadrant, burn through by sheer persistence. The Raptor fleet intensified its barrage, focusing everything on the Prometheus's forward shields. The defensive barrier brightened to near-white intensity, stress warnings flashing across Earth tactical displays. Aboard the Titan, Lieutenant Roy Campbell monitored his weapons console with professional calm. Admiral, their firing solution is predictable. Should I commence counter-battery operations? Rebecca Stone sat in the command chair, fingers steepled, watching damage reports scroll past. Negative. Let them exhaust their immediate ammunition. Demonstrate defensive capability first. Ma'am, their concentrated fire is degrading forward shields to 73%. I'm aware. Hold position, hold fire. The Prometheus advanced through the firestorm, shields glowing, hull untouched. Point defense systems activated, creating a sphere of controlled destruction around the ship. Missiles died in clusters as computer-aimed cannons tracked individual warheads with inhuman precision. Kinetic rounds met interceptor fire, fragmenting into harmless debris. Plasma bolts crashed against barriers that refused to fail. Gren ran the calculations again, hopping for different results. Warlord, at current rates, will deplete primary ammunition reserves before compromising their shields. Their defensive systems are more advanced than our offensive capabilities. Then we close to knife-fighting range, Scarix decided. Ramming speed if necessary. Concentrate all vessels on their starboard side, overwhelmed through sheer mass. 40 Raptor cruisers broke formation, accelerating toward the Prometheus in a coordinated attack run. This was clan warfare at its purest. Close distance, board when possible, disable when boarding failed, die fighting when all else was lost. Rebecca checked her tactical display, nodding the incoming attack group. Roy, time to return fire. Pick your targets carefully. Make each shot count. Yes, ma'am, engaging. The Prometheus revealed its true armament. Railgun batteries that had remained silent now spoke with voices of thunder, translated to vacuum. Electromagnetic launchers hurled tungsten penetrators at velocities that turned simple metal into relativistic kill vehicles. No plasma bloom, no energy signature, just mass and acceleration combining into unstoppable force. The first Raptor cruiser died without ceremony, a tungsten rod punching clean through from bow to stern, the kinetic transfer turning its interior into plasma and pressure. The second lost its entire starboard section as multiple rounds impacted in rapid sequence. The third tried to maneuver, failed, and tumbled out of formation with its engines reduced to molten metal. Particle beam arrays came online, invisible lances of accelerated ions slicing through armor like surgical instruments. Where railguns destroyed through brute impact, particle beams cut with precision, targeting reactor assemblies, weapon hardpoints, bridge sections. Ships didn't explode dramatically. They simply stopped functioning, crew dead, systems dark, hulls intact but empty. Missile pods opened along the Prometheus's flanks, launching weapons that made coalition ordnance look primitive. Smart munitions networked together, sharing target data, adjusting approach vectors mid-flight, selecting weak points identified through sensor analysis. They worked in coordinated waves, first missiles suppressing point defense, following salvos exploiting the gaps, final rounds delivering killing blows to crippled vessels. 17 Raptor warships vanished in the first 30 seconds of return fire. All batteries continuous fire, Rebecca ordered calmly. Port weapons engage targets at grid 4-7. Starboard batteries suppress the cruiser squadron at grid 2-3. Ventral guns clear the destroyer screen. The Prometheus became the center of a sphere of destruction, weapons firing in all directions simultaneously, targeting solutions calculated by computers that processed combat data faster than any biological mind could comprehend. Earth weapons doctrine didn't believe in gradual escalation or warning shots. When force became necessary, apply it absolutely. Target closing to point-blank range, Roy reported. Ramming vector. Deploy close-in defense systems. Arrays of smaller cannons activated, weapons designed specifically for threats too close for main batteries. They fired in streams rather than individual shots, creating walls of exploding metal that shredded incoming vessels before they could make contact. The Raptor attack group died to the last ship. Scarix watched his tactical display with growing horror as the casualty count climbed. 20 ships, 30, 45. The Prometheus continued its advance, untouched, unstoppable, weapons firing with mechanical precision. Warlord, Gren said quietly, we need to withdraw. Never, Scarix's voice was iron. Reform the fleet, full assault formation, every ship maximum acceleration. If we can't destroy it, we'll tie it down long enough for reinforcements. There are no reinforcements, Gren replied. We are the reinforcements. Scarix understood then. The coalition hadn't been stalled by numbers or tactics. They'd been stalled by not having weapons like this. And now they did. Or rather, the humans did, which might be worse. The Prometheus rotated, bringing fresh weapons to bear. Its point defense network had barely activated, most incoming fire handled by shields alone. It fought at perhaps 20% capacity and was slaughtering Raptor forces wholesale. Full retreat, Scarix ordered, bitter as poison. All ships, emergency hyperspace jump, random vectors, disperse and regroup at the designated fallback position. The surviving Raptor vessels scattered, jumping to faster-than-light speeds in panicked retreat. Of the 207 that had started the battle, barely 90 escaped. The Prometheus held position above Crucible's primary world, weapons still hot, shields already regenerating to full strength. Rebecca activated the Coalition command channel. High Admiral Quintal, this is Prometheus. Crucible system is secure. Beginning liberation operations for the colony worlds. You may advance your forces when ready. The response was a long time coming. When Quintal finally spoke, his voice carried none of its earlier arrogance. Understood, Admiral Stone. Prometheus actual, that was extraordinary. That was adequate, Rebecca corrected. Now let's discuss Earth's terms for coalition membership. Quintal had commanded warships for 37 standard years. He'd boarded enemy vessels, survived ambushes, rebuilt fleets from catastrophic defeats. Nothing in that experience prepared him for walking through the Prometheus's main hangar bay. The space stretched larger than some orbital stations, capable of housing the entire Earth escort fleet with room for maintenance operations. Automated systems moved equipment with programmed efficiency. The deck plating alone could probably withstand bombardment that would crater planetary surfaces. This way, High Admiral, Rebecca Stone's voice drew his attention. She waited near a massive blast door, dressed in a standard Earth naval uniform that somehow conveyed more authority than his ceremonial regalia. Beside Quintal, Brath's compound eyes tracked everything simultaneously, mandibles clicking softly. The hangar alone represents manufacturing capacity we'd need decades to replicate. Alvin's gills fluttered nervously. And this is just support infrastructure, not even the weapons systems. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez led the tour, his enthusiasm obvious despite attempts at professional detachment. This section houses our primary antimatter storage. We maintain enough fuel for 6 months of sustained combat operations without resupply. 6 months, Quintal's feathers ruffled. Coalition doctrine plans for 3 weeks maximum before requiring replenishment. Coalition doctrine assumes nearby support, Paul replied. Titan-class vessels are designed for independent operation in unsupported theaters, self-sufficient, self-repairing, capable of manufacturing replacement parts from raw materials. They entered the engineering deck, where 4 massive reactors hummed with barely contained power. Quintal's technical background let him recognize the basics, but the implementation made his brain hurt. Antimatter and matter combining in magnetic confinement fields, energy conversion at efficiencies that shouldn't be possible, waste heat management through systems that looked like art installations. Each reactor generates 12 terawatts continuous output, Paul explained. Peak capacity is substantially higher, but we don't advertise exact specifications. Brath approached one of the reactor housings, sensors analyzing the readings. This single unit outproduces our largest planetary power stations. You have 4. Plus backup systems. Paul pointed to smaller installations. Redundancy is critical. Lose 3 reactors and we can still maintain basic combat operations indefinitely. The tour continued through defensive systems. Science officer Ann Foster took over the explanation, her academic precision making complex concepts almost comprehensible. The shield generators operate on principles we discovered studying Earth's magnetosphere, Ann began. Layered barriers, each optimized for specific threat types. Plasma resistance here, kinetic absorption there, particle deflection in this 3rd layer. And the armor, Alvin asked, reaching toward a wall panel. Regenerative composite, Ann replied. Damage assessment systems identify compromised sections, deploy nanoscale repair mechanisms, restore integrity using raw materials from dedicated storage. Not fast enough for mid-combat restoration, but between engagements, the ship effectively heals itself. Quintal processed this information with growing unease. You've described a vessel that can fight indefinitely, repair itself, operate without support for months. What vulnerabilities does it have? Rebecca smiled slightly. That's classified, but I can tell you what we tested against. Sustained fire from combined coalition battle groups, simulated nuclear bombardment, close-range antimatter detonations, concentrated electromagnetic pulse weapons. The Prometheus survived everything and remained combat effective. Simulated, Brath noted. Theory versus practice can differ significantly. We started with simulations, Paul confirmed. Then we tested with actual weapons. The asteroid belt around Earth system has several new scars from live fire trials. They reached the weapons deck, where Roy Campbell supervised maintenance crews servicing the railgun batteries. Each barrel was large enough to walk through, electromagnetic coils wrapped in precision configurations. Railguns fire tungsten penetrators at 32 kilometers per second, Roy explained. Kinetic energy alone is sufficient to penetrate any known armor. No explosives needed, no plasma bloom, no warning signature, just mass and mathematics. Quintal examined a munition storage bay, counting available rounds. You could sustain fire for weeks. Longer if we enable the manufacturing systems, Roy said. We carry fabrication equipment capable of producing ammunition from raw materials. Give us asteroids and time, we can reload indefinitely. Assuming you survive long enough to reload, Quintal muttered. That's what the particle beams are for, Roy replied cheerfully. And the missile systems, and the point defense network. We don't believe in single-solution warfare. Helen Wright joined them in the Strategic Operations Center, her diplomatic composure firmly in place. Gentlemen, let's discuss why you're really here. The group settled into a conference room that could have doubled as a luxury hotel suite. Rebecca called up holographic displays showing Prometheus's sister ships in various construction stages. The Goliath completes trials next month, Rebecca began. The Leviathan follows 6 weeks after. Both will deploy to patrol sectors we're still negotiating with the Coalition. Negotiating, Brath repeated carefully. You want territory. We want partnership, Helen corrected. But partnership means equality, not subordination. Earth will not provide cannon fodder for Coalition conflicts while receiving scraps in return. Quintal's diplomatic training wrestled with his military pride. You demonstrated overwhelming force against the Raptors. That doesn't automatically translate to political influence. It translates exactly to political influence, Helen replied. You've built a system where military power determines status. We didn't create those rules, but we'll operate within them. Alvin's gills pulsed rapidly. Full membership, Security Council seat, what else? Technology exchange, Helen said. You provide access to your faster-than-light communications network, medical databases, stellar cartography. We share defensive shield technology and limited antimatter containment specifications. Limited, Brath's mandibles clicked sharply. We're not giving you the keys to Titan-class construction, Rebecca stated flatly. But the shield generators and basic antimatter storage would significantly upgrade Coalition defensive capabilities. Quintal considered the offer, running calculations, and if we refuse, then Earth continues independent operations, Helen said simply. We patrol our own space, defend our own interests, and the Coalition faces future threats without access to our capabilities. You're blackmailing us with the threat of not helping, Quintal said. We're offering fair exchange, Helen corrected. Protection and technology for partnership and respect. The Coalition can continue as it has, or it can adapt to new realities. Brath transmitted data to his government, received responses faster than physical communication should allow. The consortium agrees in principle. Security Council seat, full membership, technology exchange under specified limits. Alvin followed suit. The Confederacy concurs, though we request educational exchange as well. Our scientists would benefit from studying alongside humans. Quintal's feathers remained flat, a sign of displeasure, but his voice was steady. The Avarian Empire accepts these terms, though I suspect we'll regret this. You'll regret it less than the alternative, Rebecca said. The Raptors were a regional threat. Bigger problems exist beyond the galactic rim. When those problems arrive, you'll want Titan-class ships on your side. What problems? Quintal demanded. The kind we've been watching for years while you argued about territory, Helen replied. Earth's deep space monitoring detected anomalies suggesting threats that make the Raptor clans look like minor irritants. We built the Prometheus and her sisters as insurance. The room fell silent as that implication settled. Brath spoke first. You're saying the Raptors were practice. The Raptors were proof of concept, Rebecca confirmed. Demonstration that our designs work under combat conditions. The real test comes later. Quintal stood slowly, wings spreading slightly in a gesture of acceptance. Then I suppose we'd better learn to work together. Helen extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. "Welcome to the new era, High Admiral." 6 months transformed the galaxy more than the previous century. Rebecca stood on the Prometheus's observation deck, watching the Goliath and Leviathan maintain formation to port and starboard, 3 Titan-class warships moving in perfect synchronization. Behind them, the Coalition fleet spread across space in the largest combined exercise ever conducted. Earth frigates danced between Avarian battlecruisers, demonstrating the precision maneuvers that had become their signature. Kryn dreadnoughts practiced targeting solutions using computational methods learned from human tactical officers. Solari carriers coordinated with Earth destroyers, combining fighter wings with missile saturation tactics to devastating effect. "Fleet reports ready for jump," the communications officer announced. Rebecca activated the fleet-wide channel. "All vessels, this is Prometheus Actual. Exercise Gamma 7 begins in 30 seconds. Remember, this is a learning opportunity, not a competition. Good hunting." The assembled fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving only empty void behind. David Reed, recently promoted to captain of the New Earth cruiser Vigilant, found Quintal in the officers' lounge afterward. The High Admiral had changed in subtle ways, feathers less puffed, posture slightly more relaxed. "Your people have ruined my sleep schedule," Quintal said without preamble. "Every time I close my eyes, I see tactical simulations showing how badly the Avarian Empire would fare against Titan-class opposition." David poured 2 drinks, offering one. "If it helps, our simulations show similar results against Earth's old fleet composition. Everyone's vulnerable to something." "Small comfort." Quintal took the glass, examining the amber liquid skeptically before drinking. "Your species has this saying, 'Speak softly and carry a big stick.' We thought we understood it. We didn't." "Most people focus on the stick," David agreed. "They miss the part about speaking softly. Earth spent decades listening, learning, understanding galactic politics before committing to action." Quintal's feathers ruffled in what David had learned was Avarian amusement. "You played us brilliantly. Showed weakness, accepted insults, let us believe you were desperate for membership." "We were never desperate," David corrected. "Interested, yes. Willing to join a fair partnership, absolutely, but desperate implies need. Earth has always been comfortable standing alone." Elsewhere on the station, Brath met with Paul Martinez in one of the engineering labs. Holographic schematics showed shield generator designs, simplified from Earth's classified systems, but still revolutionary by Coalition standards. "This configuration should integrate with Kryn power systems," Paul explained. "Output will be lower than what we achieve, but the efficiency improvement over current shields should be substantial." Brath's mandibles clicked in patterns Paul had learned meant deep thought. "Your willingness to share this technology surprised many. Some suspected traps or deliberate flaws." "Some humans argued against sharing anything," Paul admitted. "But Rebecca and Helen made the point that real allies need real capabilities. Keeping you weak keeps you dependent, which breeds resentment. Better to build genuine partnership." "Wise policy." Brath adjusted a schematic detail. "Though I notice you've omitted the 3rd-layer particle deflection system." Paul grinned. "That's the key Perth competitive omission. We share enough to help, not enough to eliminate our advantage. Honest business." Brath's laughter sounded like grinding gears. "I appreciate the candor." Tim Brooks, now commanding the destroyer Pathfinder, found himself working alongside an unlikely partner. The Raptor warrior Gren had survived the Crucible battle and subsequently joined Coalition forces, his people's defeat forcing uncomfortable reevaluations. "Your species learns quickly," Tim offered, watching Gren study human tactical manuals. "We learn or we die," Gren replied, his translator rendering Raptor growls into comprehensible speech. "The clans believed strength meant aggression, numbers, willingness to die. Then we met you. And now we understand strength comes in many forms. Your ships are small, but they kill efficiently. Your fleets are few, but positioned perfectly. You wait, you watch. You strike only when victory is certain. Tim nodded slowly. That's Earth warfare. Make the enemy think they're winning until it's too late for them to adapt. Lisa Grant received a different sort of visitor. Alvin arrived at her ready room with requests rather than complaints. The Confederacy wishes to establish joint research stations, the aquatic being explained. Human medical technology combined with our biological sciences could benefit both species. We're open to it, Lisa replied, though I'm surprised you're approaching military channels rather than diplomatic ones. Alvin's gills pulsed in embarrassment. Your military commands more respect than your diplomats currently. Perhaps that changes over time, but today, an admiral's word carries weight that an ambassador's does not. Fair point, Lisa made notes. I'll forward this to Earth Command. Expect positive response within the week. Helen Wright, elevated to Coalition Security Advisor, briefed the expanded Security Council on threats beyond the rim. The presentation showed sensor data collected over years, gravitational anomalies, unidentified energy signatures, patterns suggesting intelligence and organization on scales that dwarfed current conflicts. Whatever's out there, Helen concluded, it's not interested in territory or resources in ways we understand. The movements suggest reconnaissance, testing, measuring our capabilities. How long until they arrive? A counselor asked. Unknown. Could be years, could be decades, could be tomorrow. Helen displayed tactical projections, which is why the Prometheus and her sisters exist, not to dominate the coalition but to provide first response capability against existential threats. Quintal spoke up, and if these threats prove too much even for Titan-class vessels, then we build bigger ships, Rebecca answered simply. Earth's already designing the next generation. The Olympus-class will make the Prometheus look modest. The Council absorbed that in silence. Later, aboard the Prometheus, Rebecca reviewed construction reports. The fourth Titan-class ship, named Atlas, was ahead of schedule. 3 more had been approved for construction. Earth's orbital shipyards expanded daily, manufacturing capacity growing exponentially as resources and expertise combined. Ann Foster joined her with analysis reports. Long-range sensors detected another anomaly at Sector 479. Same pattern as before, but closer. How much closer? 3 light-years nearer than the previous detection. If the progression continues, we're looking at contact within 15 months. Rebecca studied the data, feeling the weight of command settle heavier. Inform Earth Command. Accelerate the Atlas construction timeline. And Anne, quietly start designing weapons for threats we can't even imagine yet. Already begun, Admiral. Through the observation port, stars glittered in peaceful mockery. Somewhere in that vast darkness, something was coming. The galaxy had spent centuries fighting over scraps, arguing about borders, mocking the weak while the strong grew comfortable. Earth had changed that equation, shown what patient planning and strategic thinking could achieve, transformed from laughingstock to essential partner in half a year. But the real test approached. When it arrived, the galaxy would learn whether human innovation and Titan-class firepower were enough, whether the species that survived its own conflicts could protect others from external threats. Rebecca touched the Prometheus's bulkhead, feeling the subtle vibration of engines at standby. 3 sister ships patrolled nearby, dozens more in various construction stages, hundreds of coalition vessels learning to fight alongside them. They'd mocked Earth's Navy once. No one was laughing anymore. And somewhere beyond the rim, in darkness deeper than space, something ancient and patient noticed the changes, measured the new variables, adjusted its calculations. The galaxy had been found wanting before, Now it had new defenders. The question was whether that would be enough.